You're about to enjoy a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands.
Have you ever felt that you as a woman may not appear to measure up when you see incredible women in strong roles? You may be surprised when hearing from women in these positions and how we all share many of the same challenges. Thank you for joining us for the SheEO Lead-In podcast with Rebecca Jones as we share the journeys of women.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Jones, your host of SheEO. We are on an exploration together to discover more about the personal journeys of incredible women in both career and life. We all have paths to share that sometimes take incredible turns, deep resilience, and courage to navigate. My hopes are that the challenges shared here encourage women to take leaps of faith and growth when a journey feels too difficult or unachievable. There is great strength deep within each one of us. These stories are meant to share the ways strong women have taken their dreams to strive and thrive to new heights, despite their sometimes rocky paths, and found a way to lead in. So today we are here with Katie Yee, owner of Connect Strategic Consulting. Hello, Katie. How are you today?
I'm good, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm fabulous.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm so excited to have you here today and talk a little bit about what brought you to this new journey for you. And tell us a little bit about your background and what a day looks like in your life.
Okay. So I went to college in San Diego. That's what brought me down to San Diego from Sacramento. And I studied psychology. So I've always been really fascinated in people and what motivates them and what connects them. And after graduating, I took an entry-level position just to start working. And I actually started working with a home builder. So I was working with a company called D.R. Horton in their marketing department and worked with a great boss there who really encouraged me to get involved in the industry, to get out and do networking. They have an organization, I think you're familiar with, the BIA, the Building Industry Association, which is a great networking organization for people in the building industry. So I got really involved in the BIA as well as growing my career and started to get really connected with people in the industry. So when the recession hit, I ended up being asked to go and work with a company that was a civil engineering firm. And they were looking for somebody who had connections with home builders. So these connections that I had built through networking while working for a home builder now became, really my strength that brought me into doing business development. So I did business development working for architects, engineers, and contractors. So we refer to that as the AEC industry. And I've been helping them make connections with potential clients, creating strategic alliances, and identifying new market sectors and clients to pursue. So I've done that internally for 15 years working for companies. And then 2 years ago, I went out on my own and decided to create a consulting business that would provide business development consulting to a variety of different firms, as well as doing training and coaching.
And you're also a mom too, aren't you?
Yes, I am a very, very proud mom. I have 2 girls. Kira is 14 and Layla is 11. And they are very busy, active girls. Yes.
So a lot of sports and all of those sorts of things, extracurricular, after school things that you are also taking them to. How do you balance all of that?
I wouldn't say I balance it. And actually, I heard a term recently that I thought was really good when people talk about work-life balance. And that term was work-life integration. And I really like that because I feel like now that I consult, there's really not a fine line between work Katie and mom Katie. And so I'm definitely integrating those 2 parts of my life. And so in the middle of the day, I might take a break and jump on my Cricut and start making cheer bows for my daughter's cheer team. And then I'll jump back into work. And then later I might go and, pick them up. And when they're in the car, I'll be having a conversation with a client. So I wouldn't even say I balance it that well because I found in my life that if I'm really excelling at my career, I'm not doing as good of a job at home, or I'm not as present, I'm not as available. And when I'm really present and available at home, I find myself feeling like I'm not doing as well professionally. And so I think this integration has helped me find, I guess, balance, if you will, but it's never easy. You always kind of feel like you're failing at something, to be totally honest. I do.
I think we do as women. I think we're always the most hard critics on ourselves. Unfortunately, I think it's just something that's ingrained in us as, well, you're supposed to be doing this as, the traditional mother and wife role, and then you maybe want to do something else. And I think there is a lot of confusion that just happens with that.
Yeah.
And the truth is, a lot of people think that you can have it all. Some people think you can't. And so what does all look like to you? Because I think that's very different from each person to the next.
That's actually a really good question. I wrote a blog post on LinkedIn a while ago that was the title was "You Can Have It All." It just depends on your idea of what it all is. You're right on. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think for me, one of the most powerful things as a woman that I learned is that being successful doesn't mean that I have to be in the C-suite. And I had that opportunity. I had the opportunity to be a majority owner of a firm that I was working at, and I would have had that typical expectation of a woman, breaking the glass ceiling and getting into a leadership role in a company that a lot of women don't get the opportunity to have. And that was a really challenging decision to make because I felt a little bit of like an obligation of a woman that had that opportunity to take it. But when I was going through that decision-making process, I realized that the most powerful thing that you can do is sometimes decide not to do something. And deciding not to take that role and instead put a little more thought to what I really wanted to do, I was able to find what I'm doing now. And I do have my all because I'm still very successful professionally. I have a lot of flexibility. I am there for my kids more than, probably to an overextent where I might be enabling them a little bit, but, that comes and goes. But yeah, so to me, you can't have it all. You just have to decide what that is for you and not what society's ideas of what it is. And so now that I've found that, I feel like I do.
I love that. And I love your word integration because, and your story about the cheer bows and then going back to work because, it is tough if you don't believe you can do that to actually do that. And so making sure that we're saying to ourselves things like, you know what, I can do both. And here's how I'm going to achieve that. And being able to do that working from home, which I don't think you have a storefront, but or an actual office. And, doing that from home. And I think that really has changed because 20 years ago, people weren't working from home as much. They were going to the 9-to-5 job. And, as a mom and, a partner, because you're a wife as well.
Yep.
But figuring out how to do all of that, I think is really important. And, balancing it to your freedom, to your life, that fits for you, because it's not going to look the same. And I think that's, part of the conversation that women need to have more. This is what works for me. It may not work for another person. I think having that conversation with yourself and your spouse and your family of, okay, this is what I want to do, and having the freedom to be able to do that.
Yeah, and you bring up my husband, which is, once again, another great point. We really balanced each other's career throughout our marriage. And so when we first met, he was a teacher. He taught math in San Diego Unified School District. And he's an amazing teacher. His students love him. His parents love him. He's really good at what he does. And he felt that same pressure to climb the ladder. Just like, if you're a really great salesperson, they say you should become a manager. Or if you're a really great engineer, they say you should become a project manager. And that doesn't always mean that career acceleration is going to bring you happiness. And so my husband, part out of need and part out of desire, climbed the education corporate ladder, if you will. And he was an assistant principal for, I think, 12 years, moving around from different schools, and then went to a high school, was assistant principal there. He went back to get his master's so that he could be a principal. So when the girls were really little, I worked part-time. And thankfully, I had a company that I worked for and great managers who allowed me to have a full-time career at part-time hours. So I still had my foot in the water. And that's what I always say to women. If you can keep your toe in the water in your career while you're a young, a mother with young children, it's such a benefit because you don't lose yourself completely to the duties and responsibilities of being a mom. And then when you are, and if you are ready to go back to your career, you still have those connections. So I had my toe in the water in my career. I was taking care of my girls. My husband was working long hours. Then he became a principal, which was even more long hours and stressful. And, we just got to the point where we looked at each other and I said, I'm kind of ready to get back on the ladder. I want to work full time. I want to see what I can do professionally. And he was really at that point where he recognized this doesn't make me happy. He was a great principal. People loved him and respected him as a principal. But his passion is in the classroom, working with the students. And so we just said, okay, I'm going to take this new position. I'm going to have principal level opportunity. I'm going to be going in the office 5 days a week full time. And he's going to go back to teaching, which meant he could pick our kids up at a reasonable time. So they weren't in after school care until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night. And that gave us that same flexibility, but we were doing it as a team.
Right.
And we really, tag team each other in that way of he excelled and I kind of took a step back, but both of us always made our family a priority. And so, it's important to have, if you can have that partnership and take advantage of it, that's a huge part of being successful and finding that happiness.
Right. I love it. So you are very outgoing and fun and all of that. But I'm wondering, do you have a word that you think captures who you are, Katie?
Yeah, I would say the word connector. And I don't just say that because it's in my company name, but it's something that I've always done. Even when I was a kid, I was always meeting a friend and saying, you need to meet this friend. And I went to a couple different schools growing up. So I went to 2 different elementary schools. And then I went to a middle school that was kind of on the other side of town. And then I also went to 2 different high schools. And thankfully, I'm the type of person that thrived in that environment. Every time I went to a new place, it was like, yes, I have, it's like this new territory to conquer, like all these new people to meet. But I would always bring them back to the people I met from somewhere else. It's like, like the Girl Scout song, make new friends, but keep the old. I'm a huge advocate of that. Never forget where you came from. Never forget the people who made you who you are. And if you can find ways to connect those people with people in your new life, like everybody's going to benefit. So that's just how I've been as a person. And I think it just came out in my career because I was always introducing people and connecting them and very strategically too. It wasn't just, oh, here's 2 people. It was, I know this about this person and this person needs this, and wow, they could really benefit from knowing each other. And I just love it. I love kind of like connecting and walking away, like boom, magic, done. And then especially when you see later and they're like, because of that introduction, this happened, and I'm not like a love matchmaker. That's never been it. It's more collaboration, partnerships, and friendships. And so it's Same. I love that. And, I went to 3 different high schools. So I get, and not everyone can do that successfully. No. It could be very daunting and, terrifying, especially because at that age, you're always kind of a little bit insecure anyway. Yeah.
So you go into a new situation, my family always said, "Oh, you're really good at that. You could just thrive in that." And not even my siblings were never the same as me in the same exact situations. They weren't always able to thrive like that. So it does take someone very confident and outgoing that can go into a situation like that and really thrive. So I love the connection of other people, though, because I always am excited thinking, I want to see what they explore together.
Yeah.
Because how is that going to translate into their mutual success?
Yep.
And it could be in completely different ways. I think it's really interesting just to see. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like a psychology of,
It is.
well, how is this going to work and how's that going to, I think looking at the end result of what that collaboration or that connection can end up being is really interesting.
Well, and I had to learn how to be a little more strategic because I used to just be what I would call like an over-inviter, where I would like have people over and I would kind of over-invite.
Okay.
And the groups didn't always sync up. Sometimes it felt like there was like personalities that clash. So there is a little bit of a learning that's happened in my life of how to recognize people that will work well together. And part of what I do is I create these, what I like to call dream teams. So my job is to help my clients, whether it's a landscape architect, a structural engineer. One of my clients is a concrete subcontractor. They're actually pouring the Aztec Stadium down at San Diego State.
Wow.
Really exciting.
Yeah.
And when I can team them up with another consultant, and I like to call them like dream teams, and I make these dream teams, and I know that the cultures are aligned, the values are aligned, and they're going to work well as a team. It's just exciting to see the potential and the outcome.
Have you had a failure at that? Have you had a situation where you go, oh gosh, that was not good?
Not that I can really remember professionally. I feel like most of them in the long run have worked out, but I work with really good clients that can really work with anyone. So I think in that sense, professionally, no, but I'm sure there have been times where I've introduced friends and either they've both been like bad influences on each other. Like maybe in high school, I'm like, that wasn't a good idea, but professionally, no, not really. I think it's gone pretty well.
So what do you see as barriers in your career? Do you have any that you can say, absolutely, that's something that's really tough for me?
I would say my biggest barrier is probably myself. And I think that's pretty common for women. I, just like everybody else, I doubt myself. I don't feel like I have the same credentials as other people that I'm in the room with. There's a lot of anxiety and a lot of overthinking. And that is what holds me back more than anything. And I'm trying not to use the word because I had a girlfriend recently who said I needed to erase it from my vocabulary. But for this situation, I'm going to use it. And that is imposter syndrome. I feel like that resonates with me so well in that just every time I'm in the room, I'm like, do they realize that I'm not supposed to be here? And I like surround myself with hype girls. One of my hype girls, her name is Sarah Kilburn. We were on the phone the other day and she's like, I've heard you say that before. I've heard you say imposter syndrome. I don't want you to say that anymore. I want you to remove that from your vocabulary. I want you to just completely forget that exists because you don't have it and you're not an imposter and you belong in every room that you're in. And so I'm working on getting rid of that. But I would honestly say that's probably it.
Well, I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with because there's this, I want to call it the airbrush syndrome of everyone is airbrushed in magazines. And there's this, oh, I see someone that's more this or more that than me. And finding our place of when are we enough and what is enough. And, the beautiful thing about community is everyone has something to bring to the table.
Yeah.
It's not just, we're not all going to be millionaires. We're not all going to be lower income. We're all going to fit together in a way that is meaningful and brings community and helps accentuate the good things about all of us, because we do really have all something great to bring to the table. So do you have any situations where you have led men and you've found that there's been a barrier and that maybe they've resisted that? Or have you not really experienced that too much?
I've been pretty lucky in the sense that I feel like I've always worked with really great men. Whether I've been leading them, they've been leading me, or we've been working alongside each other. And I work in the construction industry.
Right.
And I feel like there's this impression that the men in the construction industry, maybe don't respect women or don't see the value that we bring. I have found it to be the complete opposite my entire career, even when I was really young. And I feel like my dad did a really good job of just never letting me feel intimidated. And so I think walking into a room with a certain level of confidence and humor really makes a difference, because I don't take myself very seriously. Like, this is probably the most serious conversation I've had in a long time. So I think the fact that I could handle myself on a construction site and I could talk the talk. I mean, I had a couple people that, made me cry when I was younger, but that was just because they were really trying to get the best out of me. And so they were kind of pushing but no, I feel like I've worked with really great men. And it hasn't been that difficult.
So do you have any lessons that you'd share with young women that want to become leaders?
I think the biggest thing is just, you do have to work hard. And I feel like there's a little bit of a younger generation that they talk about entitlement and things being handed to them. I worked very hard. And I do recognize that, where I came from in my life, I had privilege and I had opportunity. And I recognize all that, but there was also a lot of hard work that went in behind that. You need to work hard. You need to take advantage of your network. And that means anybody professionally. Nobody is too low on the totem pole to be important in your network, because you never know what that person's going to be doing 5 years from now. Don't burn bridges. It goes back to the same thing with your network. It's all about people. It's all about relationships. And outside of relationships, I would say be confident in the fact that you belong in that room and you belong at that table. And when you're in the room and when you're at the table, don't be afraid to speak up, ask a lot of questions, and give your authentic input, because that's, like you said, we're all there because of our unique strengths, and that's our authenticity and who we are and what we bring. And if you sit there quietly and don't share those gifts, then you're missing an opportunity to bring value to all the people that are in that room.
So were there role models that helped you kind of mold who you are in thinking all this? And the network part, because I find that fascinating, how intentional you are about the networking. And you're right. I agree with you 100%. I think there's always going to be, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, there's, no matter if someone, you don't think they're valuable right now, as far as to help you in your network, you never know where they're going to be in 5 years. As far as, their value of to you today personally, you never know who you're going to be able to connect them to at some point in time. And so were there role models in your life that really showed that to you, or was that just something you learned by just organically watching how things work out?
Yeah, I have had so many role models. I've tried to think about just one, and my parents obviously were great role models. I worked with so many great managers, and I feel like I'm a little bit of a chameleon in the sense that I'll work with someone and I'll kind of emulate and watch what they're doing that makes them successful. And then when I leave, I take a piece of them with me. And that's something that I think's made me successful too, is looking back on all those people and the pieces that I took and how those pieces became a part of who I am, whether it was the foundation or the building blocks. It all was some aspect of where I got as a person and as a professional. I would say, I think you know Rita Brandon. I think you know Rita.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I worked with her on a big project called Newland Sierra that she was just a phenomenal, inspirational leader on that project. And I was doing business development for a civil engineering firm. And because I knew Rita, she invited me to sit in the room when they would have their meetings. So I would sit in the room and she would look around the table and she would say, every single one of you is here for a reason. And this is where I learned what I was talking about before.
Right.
I want all of you to speak up. And I don't want you to just speak up about what you're a subject matter expert in. I want you to ask a question if something doesn't make sense to you. I want you to give your opinion as a person who lives in a community and owns a house and walks down a street. And I want every single one of you to be a part of this project. And that leadership, to me, and the way that she empowered everyone at that table, like all the things I said before, to show up, to be authentic, to use their voice, it was very inspiring to me. And so that was more of a leadership inspiration. But honestly, as far as the networking, I'd love to give credit to somebody, but I kind of feel like that was one of those things I was born with. And something that I found the value in it throughout my life and then saw it when it transitioned into my professional career. And I think getting that first job based on my networking really made the light bulb come on. And I saw, okay, I see how this works, and I see how having relationships with people can help you in your career.
Oh, yeah. And I love that whole bringing the community together to come up with solutions and ideas and all of that, because it is true. I mean, without community, without everyone bringing valuable input, even though we may not think it's valuable, just bringing it all together really builds something together and comes up with, I think, the best version of whatever you were trying to accomplish, as a big picture. Wow. So passion. You're very passionate about what you're doing. But what are you most proud of? Like, is there one thing where you can look back and you can say, wow, I'm really proud of that?
I think the way that I've been able to keep my family a priority while also building a successful career is probably the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah, and those two girls. What did they say? What did they say about you starting your own business?
I think they're proud of me and they recognize what I do. I think they just realize that I'm more accessible. And no, I mean, it's cute. During COVID, when the girls were home and I was working from home, my youngest got to see what I do a lot more. For the longest time, they would tell people I was an engineer, which I let people believe because it's something I wish I could be. It's that strength that I don't have. I don't know. I shouldn't say I don't have, but it's not one of my strong suits to be an engineer. But she got to actually see what I did when she was home during COVID. And all of a sudden she was interested. And she's like, Mom, I think I might want to be an architect. And, it was just having her looking at like plans that my clients had or seeing what was up on my screen when we were, doing proposals for a big project at UCSD. And I thought that was really cool because it's actually one of the things I do in addition to working is I do a lot of career outreach. And I work with an organization called CREW. It's Commercial Real Estate Women. And we do outreach to college students and high school students to educate them on career opportunities in the AEC industry and commercial real estate. And so having my daughter, in middle school, see what I was doing and show an interest really struck several chords with me because it wasn't only my career, but it's also my outreach passion too.
That's really interesting because I talk about this quite a bit, and that is trying to expose yourself to many things because you never know what you're going to be passionate about. And I think definitely as young women, seeing careers that maybe are not predominantly women, or, maybe not historically predominantly women-based, I think, but that's changing.
Yep.
I think for sure it's changing. And so that's pretty fun that your daughter was kind of saying, well, I might want to do this. And, trying things that are outside of your comfort zone, I think is really important too. So what's next on your list of things to do? Do you have any burning desires to shift a different way, or what comes next for you, Katie?
Well, I am transitioning my business a little bit. So I've been doing business development representation for my clients, which is really doing what I've been doing internally, but an outsourced resource for clients. So just helping connect them with clients, and that's great. I love that. But what I really love is training and coaching. Mm-hmm. And I love just what we've talked about, helping people find their authentic voice and identify their strengths and learn how they can add value either internally to their company and their employee, or how they can add value to their clients. So I'm starting to do a lot of public speaking and presentation training. And within that, there's a lot of exploring topics that are really important to me. Like I said, authenticity, empathy, vulnerability. I mean, I'm basically reading off a Brene Brown book right here. But, all those great, fun topics that bring together psychology and how you show up at work and in life. Yeah. And so, I don't know. I've never had a plan, and I've had some really great things happen in my life. So I kind of feel like if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I don't have a plan, but that's the direction I'm headed in. And I think we'll just see what life and God has in store, and who knows?
Exciting. I love it. I love how you boiled that all down. Well, Katie, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Really exciting, and your passion for life and all of it, and the way you talk about your family and balancing it all. And I really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.
Now that was powerful. We hope you've been lifted and encouraged by today's inspiring voice. Always remember that life doesn't look exactly the same for each one of us. Never stop dreaming, striving, and thriving. In future episodes, we look forward to bringing you powerful stories from amazing women who learn how to lead in to challenges. Thank you for listening and being part of our community with SheEO host, Rebecca Jones.
You have been listening to a Cloudcast original. Local stories, local storytellers, local brands. Find more stories at cloudcast.us.